Excel assessment test questions are typically designed in 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Most of the times, the level of complexity of the assessment is determined based on the type of position you might be applying for. In this tutorial, we'll focus on the typical beginner-level Excel assessment test questions and how to answer them. Typically, basic assessment test questions is designed for the positions such as supervisor, manager, teacher, junior financial analyst, or junior accountant. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to get ready and pass beginner-level Excel assessment test. I'll be using Microsoft Excel 2019 and Excel 365, but features that I'll be showing applicable to Microsoft Excel 2016 and a lot of previous versions of Excel as well. I'll be running it on Microsoft Windows 10, but very similar functionality exists for Mac OS X as well. To start Excel, you click on the taskbar. You can also type Excel in a search button. I'm going to click close here, and this is the screen of what you typically see when you launch Microsoft Excel. As you can see, I have previously opened files, but what I'm interested in to show you right now are templates. And there are a lot of templates that come in with Excel itself. The good one is Welcome to Excel, but I'm going to skip this one because I'm really interested in you taking in my tutorial. But if you scroll down, you can see a lot of most popular templates. And you can also search through other templates that's available in the business category and in a lot of other categories that are listed. Templates allow you to access some of the functions that's available that's pre-built for you by Microsoft. And the best way to do it, I'm going to navigate back to Home by clicking the Home button and clicking More Templates here. You can search for keywords based on what you're trying to search. For example, student. It shows you all templates that might be applicable for students. Timesheet. That's another category, for example, or finance. And then you click and open, or budget, for example. And you can click and open the template. It creates a file, and this file has instructions. And in another tab at the bottom, it has already pre-built structure that you can use for your own needs, maybe to create your own personal budget, like in this case. But I'm going to close this file. To do it, I'm just going to click File, Close, and we'll start over by clicking File, New, and we'll create blank workbook. When an employer is trying to understand your knowledge of ribbon interface, you might get questions like, how would you close and reopen ribbon interface? How would you find specific functions in the ribbon? Or how particular areas in the ribbon might be called. When you open the application, first thing you need to understand is how to navigate within the user interface. And in Excel, you can have multiple tabs. Here, for example, File, Home, Insert, and you can switch between tabs just by clicking on the name of the tab. Formulas, Data. I have some extra tabs like Load Test and QuickBooks based on the applications that I have installed in Team also. Sometimes you do not have this tabs, and most likely you wouldn't have these tabs. Within the tab, and I'm going to go back to the Home tab because this is most frequently used tab, as well as the File. You have groups. For example, Clipboard is one of the groups. This is where similar functions are grouped together, and you can access those functions within that group. Font, and it can go from left to right, alignment, number, and each tab, as you can see closer, will have very similar group. Like Insert tab will have tables, add-ins, charts. And within the group itself, there's a Details button, and if you click on this button, it has a lot more features that Microsoft wasn't able to fit on the tab, but you can access them by clicking on this Details button and accessing. Some tabs do have them, some tabs do not have them. What's important to note is that most of the function, I would say, that you need for basic usage of Excel are located in the Home tab. And between Home tab and File tab, it's pretty much a lot of things that you would need, especially if you're just trying to learn Excel to pass employment tests for Excel. That's where the basics and fundamentals are. To better understand your knowledge of Microsoft Excel worksheets, workbooks, cells, columns, and rows, you might get very different questions. For example, the question might be, how would you create a new worksheet? How would you add or remove row in Excel? Or you might be asked, what is Excel range and how would you use it in the application? There are a couple other important things I'd like to highlight for you. In the lower right corner, there's a zoom function where you can go and zoom in and zoom out. And that's something that we will be frequently using. You can also use plus and minus signs, kind of go gradually. You can also switch between the views. As you can see, we're in a normal view right now. We can switch to page layout, where you can see how page is designed, and then page break layout. Typically, most of the work you will be doing will be in the normal layout. And if we continue going around the screen, you will see that in the lower left corner, there's a sheet 1, but you can also add additional sheets. Sheets are documents inside Microsoft Excel workbook, and you can have as many sheets as you'd like. We'll start with just one sheet, but like I said, to add a new sheet, you just click this plus button and this will add a new sheet into the document. Let's look at the sheet itself. As you can see, every sheet is organized with the columns. So you have column A, B, C, and you can kind of go down the list. If you keep scrolling, when you go through all the letters of alphabet, it will go to AA, AB, AC, and etc. and goes to infinity pretty much. There's no limit of how many columns you will have. And you have rows, like row 1, 2, 3, 5, and again, if you keep scrolling, it goes and increases in number and goes up into infinity. What we also have here on the intersection of column and row, we have a cell. So each cell, like in this case, it's B4, and you see that there's information here that this is cell B4. And as we move, it changes in the name box what is the name of the cell. But each cell, because of the unique numbering and because there's no limit of how many rows and columns you can have, will have its unique name that could be referenced in Microsoft Excel. There's another important concept in Microsoft Excel, which is called a range. And what range is a group of cells. So for example, this is a range, this could be a range, or this could be a range. And typically range is referenced by the top left cell, like in this case would be D2, and then you have a column, and you reference lowest right cell, which in this case would be I15. So this particular range would be D2 through I15. And the importance of the range is that you can reference the entire areas, you can use them in formulas, in functions, and this is very helpful to calculate certain values, because a lot of times, for example, if you do a sum, you'll be just calculating the sum of all the values in the particular column. So we've covered concept of columns, rows. We covered concept of cell, which is in the intersection of columns and rows. We covered a concept of range. We've looked at the structure of Microsoft Excel document. You have multiple sheets, and the Excel document itself is called workbook, and it can have multiple sheets. Now it's time for us to go and enter some of the data. So let me zoom in a little bit, and I can go in and start typing the data. So now we'll start entering the data, and the first thing we will do is select the A1 cell and start typing on the keyboard. The document will be student monthly budget, and what you can see is that I typed 3 words, and the words flow from A to B to C, but reality is this is not flowing into the different cells. The reality is everything is stored in just A1 cell. And if I start typing, for example, in cell B, for example, maybe type, you will see that it overwrites, and the content of cell A1 is hidden, at least partially, and you don't see everything. So I'm going to remove the word type in the cell B1 by selecting it and clicking the delete button on the keyboard, and you see it's back to our original view. What I might consider doing, if I really want to have it all in one cell, I can extend the cell, and that's one of the features of Excel. I basically selected the separator between columns A and B and started dragging it to the left. If I don't like how it looks, I can go back. I can do it by dragging it back and saying, yeah, this is maybe what I prefer to have. And there is another option of you can wrap the text which fits it into one cell, and there is a wrap text button, as you can see, which will do extend the row into multiple lines. So now we have 3 lines instead of 1, and it looks kind of awkward. Maybe this is what you do want to have, maybe this is not, but this option is available. I'm going to use Control Z or undo button, and this undo is in the quick bar, and it will put it back to the original view. I'm kind of fine here. I just wanted to show you the differences and how the data flows in between cells, because I think it's important to understand as you start typing, whatever you type is going to be in the same cell where you are currently located. So the student monthly budget is in the cell A1. As we finish typing, you can navigate and find the next cell where you would like to enter data. You can use arrows, so I'm using arrow down key to move down. You can use arrow up key, and obviously to go to the right you use right arrow, and then go to the left you use left arrow keys, and you can kind of navigate. Another way to navigate is hit enter button, and you can navigate by clicking the enter button. If you click shift enter, it will take you back. And if you click tab button, it takes you within the column to the right, and shift tab. And as you can figure it out by now, shift is basically is the opposite of the function that you've selected, takes you back to the A1 cell. I'm going to hit enter again, and we'll start entering expenses. So I'm going to type word expenses. And we'll pick the typical student expenses. For example, housing would be one of the expenses, utilities, and as you can see, I can just go down the list and type everything that I need. So now you see that some of the words, they go over and flow into the cell C. This is where I'd like to extend the cell B, so all my words fit into the cell B, so I don't have to override any of the expense types. But what I'm gonna do in column C, I'm gonna enter some values, and as you can see, what I've entered here is the text, but the values would be actual money that is spent for the particular expense category. So for example, for housing, the amount of spent would be $650. Utilities would be 100, and I can go down the list and enter all the expenses. As I got to the total expenses column, one way for me to calculate is to use formulas. And there's a formula in Microsoft Excel which is called sum. So you can just type equals, and then you can say sum. And there are multiple ways to enter the data. You can say, okay, I want sum of C2 plus C3 plus C4, and you can kind of go down the list and close the parentheses, and it will calculate and provide the total sum. But like I said, this is probably the most complex way to enter the sum. I'm going to click delete button, or you can use undo button here on the keyboard, and it will remove the sum. There is a sum button on the ribbon, and you can click the sum symbol, and it will try to auto guess how to enter and calculate the sum for the values. And as you can see, it used the range. In first version of what I was using, it used the sum of all the cells individually, C2 through C10, but because we can reference the same selection as a range, now we have sum of C2 through C10, and if I hit enter, it will calculate and put the same amount here. Another cool feature I'd like to show you, because these are dollar amounts, I'm located in the United States, currency symbol might be specific for your country. You can select all this area and format it as a number. So for example, if I click on the dollar sign, it will be a counting number format for my country where I'm located. And like I said, because of your configuration settings of Windows and Excel, you will potentially have a different currency symbol, but I think this looks more professional if you highlight and select the numbers and define them as currency. If you'd like the content, please make sure to click the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Typically, budget contains both categories. It contains income and expenses. So we started with expenses because they're typically much easier to measure. But I am going to insert more cells and make sure we start with the income. To do that, I'm going to highlight row 2 and do a right mouse click and click Insert. You can use the same thing, do it again, maybe click Insert, or you can also use Control-Y keyboard shortcut. Basically, Control-Y repeats last operation in Microsoft Excel. There's a shortcut, keyboard shortcut, pretty much for anything. And here I'm going to type income. And as a student, you can have multiple types of income. One of them might be wages. As a student, you might be working, and the wages might be $1,200. And this is a monthly budget. We also get some financial aid. So that might be in amount of $1,100. And then to calculate total income, we will use the sum formula. It was very easy and quick, so we'll just click sum, highlight it, click enter, and it calculated the sum, and we will convert and change formatting. And again, we do it by selecting the values and clicking accounting number format, in my case $, and it changed it into currency. As it always happens, or a lot of times, at least to me, you start typing the values and then you want to categorize the values. So I don't have any titles for the columns that I have. So I'd like to add those titles for my table, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the row 2 and click Insert, and here I'm just going to say type. Here I'll say description, and here I'll say, clicking the tab button, amount, and this would be headings for my table. What I can do, I can select them and say that they're bold, right? And I can select the entire table, and I can put some borders around it. I can just say all borders. That's the most simple way, and I see that there are some extra rows which I can delete now. I select row 6 and click delete. A couple other things I'd like to show you as you start typing in the cell that already has text. For example, let's say I want to change wages into salary. I selected the wages cell and start typing. It replaces the text right there. If this is what you want, that's fine. You can always click the escape button and it goes back. If you really want to edit wages, maybe you misspelled it, you can double click on the cell and remove the content and type salary. Or for example, instead of financial aid, maybe you want to just say financial support. Then it allows you to edit just particular part of the cell instead of replacing the whole thing. And like I said, the undo button always allows you to replace it back. You can go for a lot of steps back, and it shows you the content. If you click on the arrow down, and pretty much from the beginning of where we started, you can go back to particular area, and you can do redo. If you mistakenly did this, we can go back and return back. Now let's look at how we can update type for each of the row. Right now the income type is only for the salary, but for example not for financial aid. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to select income, and I need to add the type of income for financial aid as well. I can obviously just go ahead and type income, but that's probably the most complex way to do it. Instead, what I'd like to do is I'd like to select income, and I'll show you multiple ways to do it. You can do Control-C, or you can do copy here. This is the copy buttons on the clipboard. So we select copy, and then we go and select cell A4, and we click paste, and it pastes the value into the cell A4. Now, that's probably, like I said, the most that's not the easiest way. The easiest and the coolest way where you really utilize features of Excel, we'll use an expense. And here we select expense, and I'd like to have expense for all of these categories like housing, utilities, transportation. And what am I going to do? You see that when I selected the cell itself, there is a small box at the bottom right corner. So I just need to slowly move my cursor and get on that box, and then I'll just drag it and select all categories that are expenses from housing up to books. And you see when I released the cursor, I dragged and dropped it, it populated all with the same value as we've selected. That's probably the coolest feature. So we've looked at 3 different ways of replicating the content. One is obviously retyping. That's the most complex, even though Excel helps you typing as soon as it recognizes that, for example, if you want to do income here, which we don't want to do, I'm just using it for the sample. It will help you autocomplete, as it's called, the value. I'm going to click Escape button to remove it. Then you can copy and paste the values of the cells, and you can also, if it's the same value, select the cell, select the box in the lower right corner, drag it and drop it where the selection ends. So let me finish by typing income, and as you can see, autocomplete is right here helping me out. I just need to hit enter to finish the autocomplete, and I'll do the same thing for expenses. Now as I finalized both income and expenses, I'm going to delete the row 6, and to do it I click on the row 6 and I click delete, and as you can see there's no gap right now. Let's look at how we can center a student monthly budget next. Right now it's kind of to the left. I can definitely make it bold. I can also choose a different color for the font. I can do it multiple ways. This menu in the font menu is accessible obviously here in the ribbon, but if you do a right mouse click, you see it's also on the top of the menu itself. So I can do the same functions right here on that menu. So I'm going to keep it bold, and I'm going to use maybe a different color, maybe green here, but I'd like to center it because it's not centered right now. So the best way to center it is to merge all these 3 cells into one cell, and then make it centered. As you can see, there's a centered middle align. There is a center here. This aligns the text vertically, not horizontally. If we click center, it would center it within cell A1. Obviously, you can move it into the cell B2, so let's do that. We can do a cut. That's another function here. So we're cutting it from cell A1, and we're going to paste it into cell B1, and it's kind of in the center, but not exactly. All right, if you're really perfectionist, what you can do, as I mentioned, you can highlight these 3 cells, and you can do a right mouse click format cells, and you can do into the alignment tab here, and you can say merge cells, select merge cells, and now it merged all 3 cells, but we lost formatting and we lost alignment, as you saw. So we're going to align it to the center. I just clicked center, and we're going to restore our formatting by clicking the bold and selecting the green color for the text. So far we were focused on the data entry and some of the basics of Microsoft Excel. Now it's time to look at some cool feature, and I'm going to show you one cool feature where we can play with the data. The biggest power of Excel is that it's the database, and it allows us to quickly find and analyze and sort the data. So what we can do, we can use the filter in Excel, and to do that we need to select the headings of the table. So there are 3 headings like type, description, and amount. So we select the whole row, row 2, and I'm going to click on the sort and filter and click the filter button. So as you can see, what happened, it added some of the drop-down boxes on each of the rows, and it didn't add them on the blank ones because Excel is smart enough to realize, okay, the columns A, B, and C are the only ones that have data, so it only added them on the A, B, and C, and not the D through the rest of the columns. And if you click on this drop down, it allows us to select specific category. Now you might understand why I've added specific category of income and expenses. So if we just want to see income, we can unselect everything and select income. And if you hit OK, on the dialog box, you see only income entries here. And you see it changed the number here, 3, 4, and 5, into blue color, showing that, okay, filter is applied. And it also changed the drop-down type into the filter icon, meaning that it also applied filter. So there are some indications for us that this is not the entire set of data. This is just a subset of what you're looking at. And if you want to look at the entire data, you can click on this and say clear filter from type. And then it shows back the original data. And it's especially useful on things like type, where you have multiple entries of the same type. For example, in the description, it's not as useful. It will show you a bunch of values, but because there are no repeated values, we would have to select each one individually. And as we add more items with unique descriptions, the list will keep growing. Versus type, there are only 2 types so far, and you can easily filter the data. So let's recap what we've covered in this tutorial. We covered fundamentals of Microsoft Excel. We've looked at different templates that's available. On the user interface of Excel, we have multiple tabs, and you can navigate through tabs by clicking on the tab name. We have ribbon available on the top. We have groups within the ribbon. We have details button where you can access detailed functions. You have multiple columns, and you can navigate between columns and multiple rows. On the intersection of column and row, there is a cell, and each cell has a unique name. We have ranges, which are represented by upper left value through lower right value, and you can reference them. We can type in data into every cell. There are multiple ways we can expand cells, and we can expand columns, and we can expand rows as well. We can undo operation by clicking undo button, and it has the list of operations that we have completed from the beginning of when we started the worksheet. Each book contains multiple sheets, and sheets are right here. Each sheet is pretty much the new document. You can zoom in and zoom out on the interface to see more or less data and get closer to a degree as you need to get closer. You can navigate within Excel by using the mouse, or you can navigate by using the keyboard, using arrow keys, or navigating by hitting Enter or Shift Enter to go back, Tab within the row and clicking Shift Tab to go back. We can format the values. For example, if we highlight it, we can apply formatting to the text using the font group, or we can do the same thing by right mouse click, and the same values are available on the top of the menu. We can merge cells like we did in the student monthly budget example. We also can apply different formatting to the numbers. Currency type of formatting. In my case, it was a $sign. In your case, it might be different, or might be also $sign. We can also use the cool feature of Excel to filter the data. To do that, you need to select the entire row and click Sort and Filter. And we've selected the filtering option. And the cool features, we started with the formula. As you can see, I select the total income, which was $2,300. This was the sum of values, and this is how range is referenced, C3 through C4. The range is different for total expenses. It's sum of C6 through C14. If you found this content valuable, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and share with your friends to help them learn faster. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.